If I told you that I have hardly any pest pressure in my garden without the use of diatomaceous earth, neem oil, BT, or other organic or natural herbicides or pesticides, would you believe me? When it comes to creating a garden that isn't riddled with pests and disease without using additives, there's not just one step, there's a series of steps. And the fancy term for all of these initiatives put together is called an integrated pest management system. Seriously, it just means that I do a shit ton of different things around this garden to make sure that we're not riddled with pests and disease. I'm not working to find a one-off solution for the aphids over here or the powdery mildew over there, or finding something to keep the gopher out on this side of the garden. Instead, I am creating an entire system and following a series of steps using biological, physical, sometimes referred to as mechanical, and cultural methods or approaches to maintaining a pest-free and disease-free garden. The fourth approach that's common is chemical. I don't use anything here. If it's not safe for an earthworm, like diatomaceous earth, I don't want it in my garden. I never wanted chickens because they land in the garden, they fly over fences, they scratch up the soil. So I had ducks for a really long time, and they're really great for biological control. They eat up snails and slugs. Biological control is using living things, plants or animals, to control other living things. But this is an example of a physical approach or a physical barrier. This is just bird netting that I draped over a couple of peony supports that I bought, and it keeps the guineas out. We think of weed barrier fabric, bird netting, actual garden fencing as examples of physical barriers or physical approaches to controlling pests in your garden. But when it comes to disease, they're just as important. So things like trellising on tomato vines help to slow blight. So that's going to be a physical approach to a disease or a negative condition that plants can get. In the caption, I'm going to list all of the different elements that we use from each of the three categories: cultural, physical, and biological, so that you can see the different efforts that I take here in the garden to keep things nice and healthy and thriving and pest-free. But in addition to the ones that I use, there are other ones out there. So don't think this is an all-exhaustive list. There's comprehensive lists out there that you can go access and find something that works best for you. This is the integrated pest management system approach that I take. Let's talk about biological for a second. So I consider planting perennials part of a biological approach to controlling pests, because perennials are going to attract praying mantises. They're also going to harbor things like lacewings, but also birds. So we have swallows showing up here now. We have owls, which helps with the rodent pressure in the garden in the wintertime. So creating perennial systems here that can offer a habitat to these animals and insects is going to help to create a predator to the insect, the pest, which is going to be their prey. Cultural approaches to pest management are going to include the environment that the plant is growing in. So when I say the environment, I mean things like I'm including companion plants and growing in polycultures. I'm using crop rotation. I'm making sure that I have healthy soil that is full of nutrients, because healthy, strong, nutrient-dense soil is going to support healthy, strong plants. And a strong, healthy plant is going to be resistant to pest pressure and disease pressure than something that's not getting the vitamins and minerals that it needs. Just like people, if we don't get the nutrition we need, we can get sick easier. Same thing goes for plants in the garden. But in addition to trap cropping, polyculture, or companion planting, making sure that I'm adding compost and organic matter to the soil, we want to make sure we maintain soil because of the inhabitants that are in the soil, such as protozoa, fungi, beneficial bacteria. We've got nematodes in there. And a lot of those, especially nematodes, can help to keep unwanted soil-dwelling pests under control. You know, a lot of natural and organic gardeners like to lean on diatomaceous earth as an approach to dealing with pests. Here's why I don't. If you do, great. For me, I don't want to, because those fossilized diatoms have a sharp skin. And yeah, they abrade unwanted things like hornworms. They also abrade earthworms. Earthworms are a pivotal part of a healthy soil ecosystem. So if I'm killing off earthworms, to me, that's not a solution that seems like a good fit. If you are familiar with guilds that you can grow around fruiting trees or bushes or shrubs, which is essentially creating a neighborhood of plants that work together to support one another and offer nutrients and, fix nitrogen and attract pollinators and repel unwanted insects. If you apply that whole system to every single garden bed, and essentially just think of creating a garden as a series of guilds or a series of neighborhoods or ecosystems, your plants are going to tend to do really well without the need for added inputs to control pests and disease. Things that are very simple, like avoiding overwatering, is going to reduce humidity in the garden, which is going to slow things like powdery mildew on your squash or your pumpkins. So there are simple steps that we can take that really can prevent a lot of the problems that most folks end up resorting to spray bottles for, so that they can spray something all over. Anyway, that's what we do here. I'm asked often, how do I have an organic natural garden without using anything? Virtually the only thing that goes in this garden is soil, plants, compost, and water. Nothing else. Well, except the guineas who let themselves in here, and the ducks when they're invited to help control some of the insects.